I can talk loud.
You can talk loud. So, everybody, welcome, first of all. I think we need to give a big welcome to Wendy, who made to be with you today, which is quite fabulous. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
So just a few little things. Obviously, we'll have the talk. There will be some questions, as you wish. Then there will be tea and cake in the garden. We also have Wendy's latest book and previous book here signed. So if anybody wants to buy a copy, they're extremely welcome. So I'll let you
Thank you so much to everybody coming today. I can hear the audio piece.
Yeah.
Sorry, would you like to turn down? I'm aware I haven't said hello to some of you, but I will promise I will come and give everybody a hug later. Really excited to have Wendy here. Some of you will know that I've been talking to Wendy since 2018. I've met Wendy in person 8 times over the last 4 or 5 years. I've listened to her voice for hundreds of hours. I feel like I know your voice very, very well, and yet it's quite strange for me knowing that I have only seen you 8 times in person. But we've spent many hours emailing each other backwards and forwards, and I think initially I was always very careful to make sure that there is an email chain in case you needed to refer back to see what I was talking about, and often I would continue to put references, and if I talked about the films that we made a few years ago, there would always be that link to the film so you can know what that film is. So often I draft and redraft the emails to you, so it sometimes feels a bit obsessive because I'm trying to make sure that I'm clear as much as possible. It's really special for me as well that you're here because over the course of the last few years when we talk about the films, I've said to you about the exhibitions that I was planning. And I think one time you said to me, I hope I'll still be around to see it when it happens.
Yeah, I am.
So it's very, very special today that you're here and you come all the way down to see this piece. And then also in 2 weeks' time we'll be in Liverpool for the Blue Coat staging as well. I'm also very excited because it's the first time that Wendy has seen the works in person as an installation. And for me, that, as an artist that makes moving image installations, that's a very key factor, that you're not just watching something on your laptop. And I wonder whether you can start by telling me what you think of seeing the works installed in this way in Danielle's beautiful gallery space.
Well, I'm very lucky. I often talk about the advantages of dementia, and one of them is that watching something as amazing as Suki has produced, then the next time I watch it, it'll be equally amazing because I won't remember that I watched it today. So I'll have that wonderful moment repeated, which so few people ever get. I remember certain bits, like the beehive, because that was so, the beehive there, that was so amazing. I was so taken with that. And I remember the flashing lights on the map, because to me that just instantly replicates what goes on in my head, because I talk about the lights that flicker and fail, affecting our ability to do something one day and then the next we can't. But the day after we can again. But when the light fails altogether, that's when that ability is gone. And that map just seemed to replicate what goes on in my head on a daily basis. Because I never know which light is going to flicker and fail on any particular day.
That's really special to hear that, because for a while that image of the satellite image of the Earth at night, that was my metaphor for maybe this is what it's like to be losing your memories.
It's a dementia is about so much more than memory. And the reason why I just loved that metaphor, you called it, is because it's not just about memory. It's about, to me, all the different lights represent all the different skills and motions we have. And one day my walking might not be so good and I fall over frequently. But another day I can just walk as anybody else. So it's that imagery of you never quite know what the day's going to bring to you.
And the map of the world as the brain. It's nice that we both connect with that.
To me, a map of the world as the brain just shows how, to me it represents how dementia isn't selective. It can affect anybody anywhere. And it doesn't take into account intellect, finance, your social situation. It can affect anybody anywhere. So having a map of the world is just a great reflection of dementia.
And what is it about the bees? Because the first time I met you, I actually had a recording that I did of the centre of a beehive. So we put a mic inside a beehive. And I just happened to say to you, oh, by the way, we've done this recording, would you like to listen to it? But I remember your reaction when you heard it. You were just like, wow, that's incredible, the sound. Yeah. But what is it about the beehive that really strikes you? Because I feel that it every time.
In all your heads, there's so much stuff because you're trying to juggle absolutely everything. In my head, I can only retain very few things. So in my head, the bees are the bees working in my head, trying to help me make sense of those few little facts that I'm trying to keep hold of. The bees are working hard, the buzzing. The bees buzzing is what my head does. And the bees are very intelligent pockets of brilliance, aren't they? I adore bees. And so I imagine having these bees to help me keep my juggling, however small it is, inside my head instead of escaping. People often say to me, oh, I've got a dreadful memory, but they're trying to juggle a job and children, business, house. I only juggle what I'm going to do in the next minute. And so the bees are the busy workers in my head, keeping me safe and secure for the next minute of what I will do. Does that make sense?
We also have talked about your new hypersensitivity to sounds and how sometimes it feels like your head is inside a beehive and the bees are angry.
Yeah. Audiologists are just starting to realise that many people with dementia have hyperacusis, just sensitivity to noise, just like children with autism, but for different reasons, obviously. And so the noise, I forgot my hearing aids today because my audiologist has toned out the tone of noise that makes my head shake, makes my brain shake. She's been very clever in there are certain tones of noise that physically hurt my ears, and I can feel my brain rattling. And it's when that happens, like when we were coming here, just arriving in London, and I live in a quiet village normally, and not having my hearing aids in, then I was subjected to all the hubbub of London. My audiologist describes it like anyone without hyperacusis, you have a gate in your ear. So when a siren goes by, your gate closes so that it doesn't pierce your ear, whereas my gate is permanently open. So the angry bees are what I get, because the bees in my head, which are sorting me out, are suddenly not very happy because all that noise is going directly into them. So that's what it feels like when there's loud noises, doors slamming, metal on metal, lots of chatter. It's just like the bees can't cope in my head. So they're telling me.
The piece upstairs, Fog in My Head, is all about you, and we spent quite a lot of time in the beginning preparing for me, thinking about how I was going to visualize what you were telling us. I would make very short sections, I call them animatics, where I've overlaid your voice with some imagery. And these might be very rough images that I've got from the internet or my own images from locations, etc. I then put them into a little movie and send it to you to check if that's okay, if that's close to maybe how it feels on a bad day. So fog is one of the central ideas to the piece Fog in My Head. Can you talk a little bit about how you feel, whether the fog that we've used upstairs is authentic to how it feels on a bad day?
Absolutely. It really is a case of being able to see your surroundings, but actually your brain is in a fog. You can't make sense of them. It's a very peculiar feeling, but the film captures it just right, because the fog isn't static. The fog swirls. You can have thick fog 1 minute where it's really bad, but then a swirl of mist flows into it, and you're suddenly coming round to realising reality. But then the swirl fogs over again, and you're lost. So it's not a static feeling. It's a fluid, just like the fog.
And then there are some intimate moments, which we talked about again, especially the hallucination with your mother.
Yeah.
And I think at the time I had some images of corridors and a figure in sort of lit, half lit. And I remember you emailed me and said, I can't imagine it, but I trust you. I'd love to hear whether that comes close to that experience.
But to show how good Suki's translation almost of my world into visual, I can get simply immersed in what I'm watching, because although I don't remember saying all these conversations with Suki, I know it's me. I know it's my voice. And so I get immersed in that situation that I'm talking about on the film. And when the figure of my mum came up, it brought me back to reality, because that wasn't my mum. Yet I'd been so immersed in the film. It was actually good because it brought me out of the living my world again, and I was in reality again, seeing a figure.
I think for me, when you talk about the two hallucinations with your dad and your mum, somehow the one with your dad, I felt that I couldn't dramatize, and instead I chose to film at first your empty garden, and then the second time a forest with dappled light. It didn't feel right to put a figure in that environment. I wanted the audience to think about where is the dad, and to look for it themselves. Whereas with your mother, because you talked about her smiling, for me, I wanted to try and portray that moment, knowing that it would ultimately fail because it will never be your mother. But it was also to get close to that memory of the hallucination, so that other people could understand what that was like.
But for me also, it wouldn't have been right. I wouldn't have felt comfortable if there had been a figure playing my dad, because I saw my dad in my own garden, which I see every day. And if you'd have brought in a figure, it would have broken that spell of what I see every day. Yet my mum, I saw in my daughter's hall, and I rarely go there. I'm not there continually, so that didn't seem to matter, because there's no spell broken. You know, my daughter's hall is very different now from when I saw my mum. Yeah, my garden is exactly the same, so I can hold on to that moment. Oops.
It's okay, I didn't mean it.
We'll wing it.
I honestly don't need this. I haven't even looked at it. Thank you. As we've been talking, I've been hearing Dominic's lovely soundscape and music in the background. I wonder whether you can talk about that and what you think about
the music. I adore the music. The music could have been a disaster. It could have. Well, it could. You know, if it didn't match the emotion and the atmosphere that the film creates, then the emotion would be part lost because the music wouldn't match. Yeah, the music, I adore the music because it just matches perfectly. I'm sure I must have said from the beginning that I love the music you always put. Yeah, you're very good at finding the people that can just capture that the right tone, the right speed, just the right emotion.
I've worked with Dominic for
That's
12, 13 years.
Mm.
I think when he first worked on this piece with you and Peggy, he said to me, that lady's voice, it's really beautiful.
Oh my goodness.
So from very early on, he was very drawn to your voice.
Mm.
I can't remember exactly how he described it, but he said it's almost like you're singing when you speak.
Mm.
It has a very beautiful tone to it, and that makes me think of one of the favourite tweets that I read about this work by somebody, I think one of your supporters on Twitter.
Mm.
She's an occupational therapist in older mental health in Wales, and she saw the show in Bluecoat.
Mm.
And she started off by saying how she really enjoyed the visit to the exhibition at Bluecoat, and I think he responded, and then she responded and said this: "It's wonderful. Your beautiful dialogue, gentle voice is so engagingly wrapped up in Suki's film. I heard your story on an entirely new level.
Mm.
It was both visceral and personally reflective.
Gosh.
Thank you both."
Mm. No, it's kind of that. Mm. Mm.
But I wonder whether you had any thoughts about hearing your story on another level. That was such a beautiful compliment.
I think it is because you're not seeing the person. You never see. I don't think you ever see me. So you don't have the image of me taking over from what's going on with the voice, the words coming and the music at the same time. And I think that captures a new way of hearing my story. It's almost stripped down to the voice, the music.
I think for me that was intuitive.
Yeah.
Because in hallucinations, you are in it. In this piece here with Peggy, you are in it a little bit. We see you typing,
right.
And then we see you by the window looking at your favourite view of the paddock. But in Fog in My Head, it was a conscious decision.
And that's more of a immersive piece. You're trying to put yourselves in my head. So if you had my body there as well, it wouldn't work as well. Yeah.
I think that's it. It was that we were trying to offer people those glimpses inside your mind and how it feels to be you.
No, I think you captured that perfectly. I was able to go in my head.
You've talked about how some people have called you a gregarious alien and how you quite like this new you. Can you talk a little bit about how that has happened? Is it entirely due to the dementia, or is it more, have you always been quite open to the idea that we are different at different stages of our lives?
No, I think we are different. However, I was an extremely private person before dementia. I would never have done anything like this. I would never have even remotely spoken in public, or unless I was in a training room, training, and then I had a purpose. I could detach myself from work where I was training hundreds of people to coming home and enjoying my own company. And my girls knew me as that person, as never shared in emotions as such, never opened up to other people, to them obviously, but not to other people. In fact, I probably did the total opposite and wore a mask. But with dementia, I suddenly relaxed. And I don't think it was anything to do with a stage in my life where you think, oh, what the hell does it matter what someone else thinks? Dementia is very clever at what it affects in you, and also very complex. And for some people, it does change your personality. And to me, I changed so much in such a short space of time that much of it has to be dementia. As I become more used to this gregarious alien, then yes, I'm more relaxed and more open and than I may have been. But I do think it's the dementia that has just flicked one light off and flicked another light on that's enabled me to enjoy others, which I didn't do before, which is what I like now, because I've met so many wonderful people just like you.
I think for me that's such a hopeful aspect of having dementia, but I think so many years of my life, and every now and then I still am quite self-conscious, and to hear someone say, well, I'm no longer self-conscious, I'm much more bold, if there's something I want to say, I'll just say it. It's such a release.
I also, Peggy says, I've lost my fear. And that's exactly the same for me. I've lost any fear of doing the wrong thing, saying the wrong thing, because I do that all the time. So, it's that fear as well that people hold on to, that fear and worry of, oh, what if I say the wrong thing? What if I do this? What if, I just don't have that. I believe I'm very lucky in that dementia has left me with some nice bits, and for other people it's left them with some less nice attributes. And they know it. They know that dementia has caused their anger, caused their forthrightness. And some of them don't. Some people don't recognise that it's dementia has changed their personality or their attitude to others or their self-consciousness. It's the brain is just something that we know so little about, that if we could find the perfect solution for dementia to leave us with the right things, then someone would be on with the winner. Yeah.
That would be amazing, wouldn't it? You can pick and choose.
I know, that light.
That aspect of my personality. Maybe we can do dementia. That would be amazing.
That would be good. Yeah.
When I think about the whole Project Conscious and how the kind of deeper exploration of dementia within consciousness, I think there's an aspect of it which is also about collective consciousness, about raising awareness of human subjectivity, how it feels to be me. Because I think it's complicated enough, but when you throw in cognitive diseases like dementia, then it is so complex. I wonder if you have any ideas about what society can do to help people who are living with dementia.
There's so many simple things you can do. Firstly, talk to us. I had someone email me last week, and it's still in my head now, asking me how they should talk to me when they meet me. And so I emailed back saying, how should I talk to you? Because it's, I'm a human being just as much as she's a human being. And it's almost, I'd love to strip away people's fear of what would happen if they engaged with us. Because many people have this fear of, oh no, I can't, what should I say, what should I do? Instead of treating us like anyone else and then going with the flow when you start a conversation, just like you do when you meet someone else for the first time, you know nothing about them. But also time. Time takes on a whole new meaning with dementia. And it's the reason I don't ever use the telephone now. Because the people at the other end can't see me thinking. And so when there's a silence, which many just get so embarrassed by, they fill it with another question. And then I get confused as to what question I'm answering, and I just go round in circles. So I never use the phone now. And I've forgotten what question you asked me because I don't know why I'm saying that.
I think because I'm aware of the stigma that there is around dementia.
Yeah.
And when I talk about you to other people, people are often very surprised that you are articulate.
Oh gosh, yes. People's expectation of what we can say is so little that when we say anything, it's like a big deal. So that's why I never get nervous at things like this or live TV even. Because people's expectation of what I can say is so little. And if I get in a muddle, if I get really confused, well, I've got the perfect excuse. So it doesn't matter how I perform, if you like, because people's expectation is so low. And that's also very sad. But one of the things I always say is we all had talents before a diagnosis of dementia. We don't suddenly lose those talents overnight. We've got so much to offer the world, so much to offer the community, that if they allowed us in instead of closing the door, then we still have so much to offer. I have a lovely friend who is I've forgotten now. Lovely friend. Who was a builder. Built his own house. Magic. As soon as he was diagnosed with dementia, he was told, well, you can't do that anymore, you've got dementia. And he stopped because he believed what he was told, because it was by a professional. And then when we all met, he was with a few of us. It was a garden project. And we said, oh, John can build us a wall that has flowers in the middle. And he looked and said, no, I can't. But of course he could. He could do what he used to do because we convinced him that he still could.
Can we talk about what nature offers you? I mean, I often use imagery of your voice overlaid with beautiful shots of the landscape, but I'm interested to know how you feel when you go outside, and I know that that's a very big part of your life.
Oh, it is. Every day, at the moment, at 5 o'clock, I go out to watch the sunrise. I go for my walk. And it never ceases to amaze me what I see each day, because I do exactly the same walk around the fields and back. But every day I see something different. The clouds are different. The heat is different. The wind is different on your face. And I might see a deer one day, or I might just see a hare the next. But capturing those moments, I adore photography, and capturing those moments just is so very special, because with a blink of an eye they're gone. And I post them every day on our village Facebook page, and people say, but you see things that we just walk by. And it's exactly that. You know, it might just be a ladybird on a leaf. But when you capture that in that moment, that ladybird looks so beautiful on a green leaf. And yet people are just brushed by it. I was as guilty as anyone when I worked. I was always wishing for the weekend, wishing for the next holiday, wishing my life away. And dementia has told me that the only certainty we have is this moment, because we don't know what the next moment will bring. So enjoy this moment. And outside in nature, I feel as though dementia is diluted because I'm outside in the big world. Whereas inside, I feel like I'm handcuffed to dementia because it's just me and dementia alone. But outside in the big world, I've got all my friends of nature around me. And I hope I never tire of that.
I could happily listen to you talk for hours. I think quite often I feel like what you say, that they're words of wisdom. You know, it makes me think of this old proverb. It's a Chinese proverb that says along the lines of, if a family has an elderly, they have a gem. I feel that listening to people elderly people, people with dementia or experiencing other kinds of cognitive diseases. And we have so much to learn from you because it really prepares us for our future. And actually, over the course of the last 5 years that we've known each other, we haven't just talked about dementia. I've learned so much from you about motherhood, about supporting friends who have got cancer. We've had loads of really beautiful conversations that I really have feel so enriched by. It's, I wonder whether you could say what that percentage is, because I know that generally we feel that people who are articulate, who have dementia, are the minority. And what is it in your experience?
In my experience, it's 50-50 almost. There seems to be a balance. And a balance not of, if you talk about communication, then to me, it's probably 99% to 1%. 99% can communicate. You just have to find a way. And just because people can't verbally talk, doesn't mean they can't communicate. And it is just getting to know the person and finding out what matters to them. Because if you find out what matters to them, the communication will just flow.
See, that for me, that perception then needs to change. Because if you're saying it's 50-50, I would say that the majority of people would say that it's not 50-50. It would be a much higher figure of people who can't communicate. But the idea of actually let's find a way to communicate. Because it's really key to find those other ways to interpret what might be challenging behaviour otherwise.
Yeah.
And quite often I think that breakdown in communication can manifest its way in very, very unhelpful expectations.
Absolutely. We're forever being labelled challenging. But to me, it's simply an unmet need isn't being fulfilled. And I've forgotten.
We were talking about it's that breakdown in communication. So,
oh yeah, challenging. I can give you an example. My friend was in hospital. The hospital hadn't adopted John's campaign, which is where someone with dementia can have someone with them. And so they weren't allowed any loved ones, and they were put in this alien environment and started throwing anything that they could get. They started throwing them at the nurses. And so the nurse rang the wife and said, "You'll have to come because he's being very violent towards my staff." She knew perfectly well he wouldn't be violent to anyone. And as soon as she came in the room, into the ward, then he just immediately calmed down. Just changed because there was something familiar. There was his wife there. So the unmet need was not allowing his wife to stay with him because that would have done away with the so-called challenging behaviour. And I often turn it upside down and call it challenging staff because it's them not recognising that there's a need. And either not having the time to find the problem or just not willing to find the time.
I feel like I've been so lucky to be able to ask so many questions in the past 40 or so minutes, and I'd really love to open out and see if there are any questions from the audience.
They'll probably all go silent now. Yeah.
Wendy, I know you trundle
I do.
every day, and I listen to your blog.
Oh.
And I think that's part of how you've kept going so brilliantly, is you're walking in nature. And I read a couple of books recently, The Salt Path by Raina Wynn, where her husband has like a Teo disease, and he's kind of overcome it through the walking. And I work with people who live with dementia, and I know it's really hard to get people out, and I'm lucky I work in a garden, so our work is all around gardening and being out in nature, the most important aspects. But how do you think we can help people with young onset to do this, to be out walking? Because it's not everyone's thing. You're very lucky that it's your thing, that you like it.
It's not easy, because as I say, the most comforting thing is sitting doing nothing. It really is. Dementia's cruel way of making you feel safe, and actually it's the worst thing you can do. To me, it's people have a choice, but it's giving them choices that enable them to make the right choice. So to make them feel in control of what they're choosing to do and not doing something because someone's told them to. So it's a very fine line between telling someone to do something and giving them choice. And it's often I have a lovely friend who loves sitting, but I can't sit for very long doing nothing, so I get fidgety when I'm with them. So I just take hold of her hand and say, will you help me find that bird? I know there's a bird there. And she loves helping people, so she'll help me find the bird in the tree. And before we know it, we've walked round the garden and back again, and she's quite more than happy. But it's putting the onus onto her to help me. It's it is very tricky, and I know it is. But don't give up.
No, and in my work I can do that, but I want to try and harness what you do, which is you walk. Your trundles can be 8 hours.
They can.
And it's obviously, that is so good.
Yeah. I just have that mindset that when I'm out walking, I'm not alone with dementia. And that's my way. That's my way. My mantra is there's always a way, and that was the way I thought of that for that. As I don't feel hunger anymore, which you can imagine not feeling hungry. It's really hard to eat. But I tell myself I have to eat, otherwise I can't walk. So it's giving myself a reason every time of why I need to do something. I'm just very lucky in that I can convince myself what I need to do.
Thank you.
But also I think the desire to walk is also coupled with that desire to see the sunrise. And to take photos of the ducklings, so that you're always rewarded.
That's my added bonus. of all the wonderful things I see. The other morning I just snapped at the right time and I caught a deer mid-flight.
I saw that.
Very weird. But people in the village said, "What? How did you do that? Where were you? What?" And you know, I can't say to them, "Well, go to that field and you'll see it." you have to capture those moments when they happen, and that's what's so wonderful about nature. Is it never throws the same moment twice. It's always different.
I think it is that time that you give it.
Yeah.
Because some of the recent photos of you in Keswick with the fog, when I saw them, I thought, oh my God, they are really beautiful.
Yeah,
I would love to go there again.
Yeah.
I think when you give nature that time, it does reward you with those moments, and then you keep wanting to go. I think every time I see a sunrise, I think of you. I think, oh, look, I wonder if Wendy's seeing something like this.
Yeah. It's that with dementia, your eyes linger for longer because our brain takes longer to recognise something, to see something. And again, I think that's the gift of dementia because it allows you to see something and not look away because you had to look at it longer, and you suddenly see a raindrop fall, or you suddenly see a bird land. Yes, it's. I could talk forever about my trundles.
There's the hand at the right, address at the back. Hi.
Suki, I wonder if I can ask you how this sort of 5-year period and this work has changed you as a person in working with Wendy, listening to her voice for all those hundreds of hours and doing the work that you have. Are there any ways that you could comment on that?
It's made you wear different clothes today.
So I am someone that really doesn't care what I wear because most of the time I'm just so hectic, so I throw on the nearest thing, which usually is all black. However, having known Wendy that black is not a good colour for her because it just looks like a hole.
Yeah.
And my head would be floating around in space.
Well, you can see a few heads.
I decided that I was going to wear something different. So the dress sense has changed. So.
But only in my presence.
only in Wendy's presence, of course.
Yeah.
I think I'm a lot more open to lots of things. I think rather than thinking, oh, life is like this or these things are like that, I think knowing Wendy, I'm more open to thinking differently or thinking the opposite or just thinking the opposite anyway, just for fun, to see where does that take me. It's made me even more patient than I was because through doing this project, I've had to sustain doing a project for 5 years and beyond. I've never done a project this long before. I think the project before took 3 years, and that included development, production, and then the final dissemination to the public. So this is the longest project yet, and I've really had to learn that patience of really trying to understand what it is about conscious that I want to show as a project, what it is about dementia that I want to tell, and how to tell Wendy's story. And that took some time to figure out. I mentioned at the beginning of the talk that that I've known Wendy since 2018. I've met her 8 times in person, many hours of audio recordings that I've listened to, hundreds of hours again and again. I mean, I am very patient, but then I think I've just reached another level of patience where if I don't feel like I have what I need, I'll just listen to everything again. But that's like a whole week of listening. So, and now I think I'm getting better at making those little shortcuts, so it's not such a huge task. But still, I think that, yeah, that patience on staying with something and really trying to understand what it is that I want to tell.
And that sense of importance of getting it right. Because if he hadn't had that patience to tweak and stay with something, then it wouldn't have been right. So
I don't know if I have any more questions, but we can probably continue some of the conversation outside.
But before that, maybe...
But
yes.
I was going to say, however, the film upstairs is running. We shall set up this one in a few minutes once you have all departed. So you'll be able to see the work properly. You'll be able to have tea and cake and talk to Wendy if you wish, and take your time.
Yeah. And then before that, maybe we can get Wendy to read from her book.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lovely passage that she would like to read out to all of you.
I think I've talked today about the gifts of dementia. And in the film, you see me talking about seeing my dad. Well, this is my translation of it in words in my book. Dementia can be cruel in so many ways, yet every so often it hands us a gift in an unexpected form. It was a bright day in the garden and the sun was starting its descent, streaking long shadows of the fence across the lawn. I was pottering inside, shuffling from one room to another, with a cup of tea in hand, trying to decide where to sit. Suddenly, through the glass of the double doors, something caught my eye. It took a while for the silhouette to make a recognisable figure, but it was then that I saw the unmistakable shape of him. A man standing in the middle of the lawn. My father. By then he must have been dead 20 years. Should I have been frightened to see him in all his incredible yet ordinary detail? He was wearing his familiar baggy green cardigan, his happy casual clothes that he wore to potter in his own garden shed, and on his face was the same relaxed smile. A tip of mine for visual hallucinations is to take a photograph on your phone or your iPad of what you think you can see. And if it's in the picture, it's most likely there in real life. But in that moment, I didn't want to break the spell. He stood, just looking at me, his hands hanging by his side, even the yellow of his nicotine-stained fingers visible from this distance. I don't know how long we stood looking at each other. Could have been minutes or hours. Dementia has a funny relationship with time. The logical part of my brain knew that what I was seeing wasn't real. I know the disease has a habit of playing tricks, and normally I would use my 30-minute rule, walking away and returning half an hour later, to know for sure whether what I saw was still there. But this time, I simply stopped and stared, determined to enjoy this gift that dementia had granted me, because they are so few and far between. I felt not fear, but an emotional pull to stay and spend some time in the company of my dear old dad again. And in the blink of an eye, he was gone.
Thank you.